Sometimes it carpets hillsides in the desert around Phoenix and Tucson, and it puts out showy composite yellow flowers. Brittlebush is really really nice to put into herbal oils and herbal salves. And if you want it to be a salve, you add beeswax to it, and that hardens it up. And it's antimicrobial, but more importantly, topically, it's anti-inflammatory. And Brittlebush leaves put into like lip balms, chapsticks and such is ideal, because one of the like specific benefits of this plant is that it works really well as an anti-inflammatory on orifices like the mouth, like the anus, like the vagina, where you have a lot of inflammation, and is famous in the Mexican herbal tradition for alleviating inflammation of arthritic joints, because it's a good internal anti-inflammatory. And I say start low with it. Some people they start sweating, and they start, I won't say hallucinating, they get feverish from it, because it's powerful inside. It's a powerful, warming, vasodilating, anti-inflammatory that's really just irritates some people. I've known people that actually just eat the flowers and break out into 101 degree temperature fever.
Wow.
The flowers are powerful. The flowers are almost shamanic in their kind of like how they feel when you just pick some flowers and chew and munch on them. You start feeling hot and fevery. Your joints are aching, and your lungs are kind of cold, and maybe you got some phlegm in your, this is a nice tea to sip on to decrease inflammation and put heat back into a cold, stuck condition. But literally, I've been on herbal walks, and some of the flower, the people who gravitate towards flower essences or flower, munching, they're sweating profusely, and they're like, I'm feverish, and they are feverish. You touch them, they're burning, and it only lasts for a little while, but then they start like, oh my God, the plant's talking to me, or like, I'm seeing spots, and I'm like, and I've heard this enough to like, I don't want to try that, but it's like, I've heard it enough from enough people that it's like, it causes a mild delirium for a moment, chewing on the fresh leaves or chewing on the flowers.
But in a salve, it doesn't do that.
No, not at all. And dried, put it in a salve, and most as a tea, it hardly ever doesn't hardly heat you up past to feverish state. But as the dry leaf. But the flowers, they got something going on. There's something there's something going on with those flowers. We were on a deep Sonoran desert trip, way down the Cabeza Prieta, down by the Mexican border, and my daughter Larea, she must have been 7 years old. She was munching on these flowers. And her temperature, I had my med kit, her temperature was 104.
Wow.
And it was the last day, so I concluded the herbal, and we drove fast back towards Tucson. Wow. Because I couldn't get this fever under control. And she was in the back seat, speaking in tongues. And then it stopped. Her temperature dropped, she came out of it, and she was, wow, berries were everywhere. and just totally had like an altered states of consciousness, shamanic journey. And I was like, whoa, that girl's got a relationship to this plant. But it terrified me. I mean, I couldn't control her fever, and it was hot out already. It was like in the 90s, and she's burning up, and I'm like, I got to get closer to Tucson in case we need to go to the hospital, but I was pulling into to a Circle K or whatever, and to get a bag of ice to just start cooling her and icing her down. But that's when it broke.
Wow.
And
how long did it last? A couple hours, or
about 4 hours for her.
Okay.
She's like, I've been eating those flowers all morning. And God knows how many she ate.
Cute. That is so cute.
I think she's going to stop in on her way back to Flagstaff.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Remember when we were
we were there and she called,
and we were talking about chaparral, Larea tridentata, and I had said oh, this plant is named after my daughter, and never have I got a phone call.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
and my phone was on, and it was my daughter, and I was like, oh, hi, Larea.
It's so wild.
The serendipity of that
really
was just
cool.
bizarre. But anyway, Like that was right around the corner on that. But this is a great one to put into first aid salves and salves where you've got arthritic salves or muscle balm salves. Salves where, and how you collect it is the aerial part. But I gotta tell you, this Brittlebush is the harborer of rattlesnakes. So you need to be careful when reaching down in there, and kind of like always have a stick, or kind of at least like they, for some reason, and the reason I believe this, for some reason they love Brittlebushes, but I think it's like a great place for shade and for ambushing mice. But I have found more rattlesnakes in my wildcrafting under Brittlebushes than almost any other spot, particularly that I can recall. But I just come in and I grab, take off the dead leaves, the aerial parts like that. And this is what I'll dry. And if you're lucky enough, and some of you already know this, but it's like, if you're lucky enough, on many Brittlebushes, you get a exquisite little sap. Because the plant really, in the hotter summer months, the plant can exude these beautiful golden bits of resin, and you get a little film container or a little pill bottle or something, and you go around and you pick those up, and it's really, they call it Encelia. It is really, I think, some people, actually somebody last year said it was the most disgusting thing they'd ever smelled, and I'm like, whoa, I don't know what happened to their olfactory sense, but to me it's one of the most beautiful smelling incenses, that when you burn the resin and drop it on a charcoal disc. And they call it Encelia, and it's actually considered a very precious incense, and a very hard, I mean, you would have to fill a tiny little, those old 35 millimeter film canisters, you know, or like a little, you know, penicillin plastic pill bottle. You would have to spend a couple hours visiting several hundred, unless you got lucky, several hundred of these little shrubs. Sometimes you get lucky and you find like a nice penny-sized piece of resin that accumulated, and it's like, oh my God, I got lucky, you know. But otherwise, it's a tiny little match head-sized little piece that you got to go, and you're lucky to get one or two of those on the stem. I don't necessarily see any on this one, but resins and saps tend to be more prolific when they're hot, when it's hot out, and the plant is like circulating more, and the saps are running more during the hot times. I love this plant a lot. The Brittlebush is really like one of my favorites to add to salves. It combines really well with, like, you know, some of the things we saw today. Like if you wanted a topical, really effective salve that was really good for inflammation, pain, and mild infections to medium infections, we hadn't talked about it, but some chaparral leaves. I mean, everybody here knows chaparral, right? I pointed it out. It's on the table. We live in the Southwest. Chaparral. We haven't talked about it. We will. But chaparral for your antimicrobial aspect. Tobacco leaf, which we're going to talk about over here in a moment. And this is a great arroyo to collect some tobacco leaf and some of the green leaf. It's just rich this year with tobacco. And so tobacco leaf, chaparral, Brittlebush, Herbal Monza. We haven't talked about it in detail, but we've got it available to us on this weekend. What else have we saw? Some Yerba de la Negrita, the globe mallet. Those all dried, put into like your salve preparation, is just a powerful healing salve for a whole variety of different things. And you could, if you want to make it more for pain and inflammation, add more, make tobacco and Brittlebush more of an ingredient component than say like Yerba Monza or chaparral. If you want it to be a general purpose salve, kind of make everything even and balanced. If you want it to be more for pain and inflammation, for achy sore muscles, torn ligaments, bruises, sprains, then add more of the Brittlebush and more of the tobacco. Tobacco topically is a great pain medicine. It's a great analgesic.